FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. It's Kerry, Lutz, and this is, well, some might call it Wasted Wednesday. Some might call it Whatever It Takes Wednesday. But Andrew Hoffman is here. Andy, what on earth is going on now? It looked like gold was going to go blasting through 1,200, but not quite so fast.
Well, it never blasts through anything. And, any blast it has been stopped by what I wrote about the cartel herald algorithm. It looks like a little flag pattern every day for forever. But, eventually we break out. And at these levels, well below the cost of the industry sustainability, and in most cases below the variable cost of production, I don't have the slightest worry about either metal around here having material downside no matter how much they try. And global demand is increasing steadily but surely. And remember, with all those currencies that have crashed around the world, there's an awful lot of countries where the price of gold is either at, near, or in shouting distance of all-time highs. And that includes not just banana republics, but, we're talking about, Brazil is at an all-time high. Japan is pretty close. Canada and Australia are within 15% of their all-time highs. So around the world, the gold bear market is over. It's just here in America where it's struggling so hard because, one, the cartel has more to lose here, and two, because all the money that's flying into the dollar, not because of economic strength, but because of liquidity, is making it even more difficult, for the people who are looking for a dollar plunge to buy gold. And of course, as I've said all along, it has nothing to do with the dollar index. Gold has moved up with the dollar index flat. It moved up for about 8 years before this recent big smash. And right now, to say that gold's can't go up unless the dollar goes down against the euro, there may not even be a euro, let alone the yen. So, it's all just cartel games. We're in the terminal stages of history's largest Ponzi scheme, and therefore you're seeing, they're pinned in a corner and they're fighting to the death, and they are losing.
Well, I predict one day, Andy, and in the not too distant future, the old expression "not worth a continental" is going to be replaced by "not worth a euro." Mark my words.
Or a dollar. The dollar is as I call it, the head of the totem pole. It's, it will be the last to get submerged by the tsunami because it's the reserve currency. But one by one, currencies have been destroyed. It's funny when people say, well, you're waiting for all this destruction. It's like, what am I missing here? Are people looking at the South African rand, at the Brazilian real, at the Indonesian rupee, at the Russian ruble, the Mexican peso? People don't even realize how badly. I talk to people in Mexico, they can't even get a hold of silver. It's not even available for sale. So one by one, they'll get the currencies. The euro has got a gigantic near-term bullseye on it because Greece is going to leave. They can pretend all they want. It's becoming a comedy. It's not even a Greek tragedy anymore.
A farce. Farce.
No one's even listening anymore. Everyone knows Greece has no money, and it's only a matter of time before Greece becomes the first to leave the Euro Union, and then all the others will follow in suit. It'll probably start with Spain when the Podemos party inevitably wins the presidency in December, and the same thing will happen in France with the National Front Party, and in Italy with the Five Star Movement. In fact, I just read today, Sovereign Man wrote an article that France is instituting a massive list of currency controls today.
Right, which goes in with my theme of Operation Dirty Money. They're going to get rid of currency, physical paper currency. That's the game plan. They've been planning it forever, and the fruition is coming shortly. Bitcoin, I believe, as much as I like it, as much as I see that it's really a potentially great thing, is just another facet of getting rid of paper currency.
Well, it's funny. This is a bigger discussion. There's so many things, because when people say, like what you're saying, getting rid of it, with the connotation that it's kind of an evil thing. Let's face it, we're pretty much a cashless society to start with.
93%.
Yeah, you can make transactions, and I'm sure drug dealers still do plenty of transactions.
Anything illegal.
Yeah, that's going on But the fact is that, I mean, I'm not so worried about the loss of cash. The fact is they're trying to monitor what people are doing even more.
Right.
Well,
that's what it's about. Control.
Yeah.
It's not, if you could transact any transaction you wanted to anonymously with any medium of exchange, and Big Brother didn't have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people out there watching you, who would care? But you've got a huge national security, so-called national security apparatus watching your every move. That's what this thing is about here. Let's face it.
And by the way, I think it would probably be naive to believe that Bitcoin is outside of that. If they have the greatest computer technology in the world, they're going to cause an awful lot of damage to Bitcoin. I mean, think about what the gold and silver have been up against all these years as far as an alternative currency. So believe me, if Bitcoin ever gets into prominence, it's going to fight the gold wars just as viciously.
Oh, we know
so,
this.
I mean, it's a story that's going to take many years to write, and I don't know, perhaps it'll come about. I'm skeptical, but again, I'm talking about the near term. I don't know what'll happen in the long term. Maybe there will be digital currencies, and and as for back to France, we're talking about one of the capital controls, and I'm not sure if reading that article by Sovereign Man, if he's saying they're done or they're being proposed. It sounded like they're done.
Yeah, and
one of them is that you must report all gold movements throughout the country. So, like, let's say you wanted to move some gold, like, let's say it happened in the States. I want to move gold to Brinks, Canada. Well, they'd monitor that. So the point is you need to do it now before they start monitoring what you're shipping around. And the same goes for Europeans. We wrote an article 2 months ago, I think it was called An Urgent Cry to Europeans, saying the euro is going to collapse and you're not going to be able to protect yourself. And I mean, how much more vocal do you need to be? Because today's article that I wrote, it'll be out tomorrow. It's called The Worst Precious Metal Sentiment in 2 Decades. Okay. And I'm talking, of course, about Westerners, like Americans, because they've trashed the price so much, and to a lesser extent, even in Europe, although the price of gold in euros is only about 25% from its all-time high now. And people just don't get it. They are so jaded by these attacks that there's nothing that will make them believe that it's time to buy. I mean, there are probably people in France who are going, yeah, I'd like to buy gold. I see the euro is collapsing and probably will go further down. I see the statistics of rising gold. I see the economic data, the QE that just started that's going to go on forever here in Europe. But, the price of gold keeps getting smacked down, and I don't know, I'm not really into it. I mean, it's gotten that bad that people are making such silly decisions. Here at Miles Franklin, now again, I shouldn't say silly. You can do whatever you want with your money. But we've been in the precious metal business for 2 decades. We never have big sales. I mean, when we do once in a blue moon, someone needs money for something. But in the last, I'd say 3 to 4 weeks, we've had as much selling as buying. And it's people who are giving up. And, as you know, it's a pretty big deal to sell gold and silver. You got to call up, get a quote. You may have to move it around, ship it. There's big spreads involved. But people are actually doing it. And they're doing it with the most bullish precious metal news flow you'll ever imagine. And they're doing it as supply is drying up because the mining industry is collapsing. So even if you were scared that the Fed is going to raise rates and all this mystical stuff that you're supposed to be scared of, and deflation, we're going to go to $800 gold because there's deflation. The fact is, from a mining industry standpoint, it's just not possible. They're literally at $1,000 gold. There would be no mining industry and there would be no physical supply out there. It would be just like 2008.
That's true. And it just never ceases to amaze me that the public will do exactly the wrong thing at exactly the worst possible moment, whether it's the stock market, whatever market it is, you can count on it to occur, right?
And of course, in the stock market, it's kind of like with oil. I worked for years in oil with the cartel supporting me. Now I'm working in gold where it's against you. If you're buying stocks, at the peak, like everyone has, well, I shouldn't say everyone, there's no retail participation. It's all institutional. But the people who are buying it now are buying it with the full support of not only the Wall Street, of course, but the government in every way, shape, and form. And they're QEing and they're saying the economy's great, and they're putting out fake economic data to make things look better. But with gold, it's not only are people doing the wrong thing and selling it at the bottom, and I'm not talking about mining shares and GLD. I'm talking about actual physical gold and silver. Yeah. But they're doing it with the headwind of being told that that it's the wrong thing to do. So again, people are just doing the absolute wrong thing at the wrong time and selling. And again, I don't want to overstate how much. It's not like billions and billions of selling. I'm just saying from a Miles Franklin standpoint, traditionally 95% of our transactions are buys. And I'd say in the last month, it's probably closer to 50% because there are people who have finally thrown in the towel. I mean, this is true capitulation mentally. And again, when you're talking about gold has been the same price for the last 2 years. It's not like gold is plummeting in value. It ended 2013 at 1,200. It ended 2014 at 1,200. It's 1,200 today. People are just are so frustrated by the constant attacks and repelling of its upward movement that they're giving in. And, are they buying stocks with that money? I kind of doubt that. I think they're just so scared of losing money because they've already lost money in stocks, in real estate, that they just don't want to lose anymore. And then you got these opportunistic newsletter writers saying, oh, look, it's down. It's going to go down some more. But of course, if it goes up, then we'd be buyers. It's the same thing. Short-term bearish, long-term bullish. That's how they always talk because they need to generate commissions, and et cetera, et cetera. People need to do their own due diligence and be smart about the fundamentals. There has never been a better time, or I should say a more necessary time, to protect yourself in all manners of life than today. And when it comes to gold and silver, not only are you getting that protection as the whole world QEs itself into oblivion, you're getting it at prices below the cost of production with a mining industry that's guaranteed to not be increasing production anytime soon, probably ever in our lifetimes.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine a situation where production would increase, isn't it?
It can't, because even if it went up because of all the lack of capex for 15 years, because of the cartel suppression of the price and the strangulation of the capital markets, there's been no discoveries at all. There hasn't even been any exploration, let alone any discoveries. And now the length of time to get things done and the costs of developing and all the government rules. And of course, the more gold becomes monetary in nature, like its currencies crash, the more likely it's going to be taken. Like there's a company, El Dorado Gold. They've always had this development in Greece, of all places, of gold. And sure enough, the stocks plummet into nothing because everyone knows if there's truly an issue there with Greece is just going to they've already said it, we're going to take the mine because they'll consider it a national security asset. Not that they'll ever figure out how to mine it, but they'll just take it. So again, we've hit peak gold, we've peak silver. If it's not there now, it's going to be there momentarily. And the worse the economy gets in the world, the less production of base metals is going to be, which are also oversupplied. And that's where a lot of the silver comes from. So again, I mean, you're talking about the monetary protection and, economics 101 protection at these ridiculous prices as the world is flaming out.
Yeah, I don't see much else you can do here. I mean, what are your choices, really?
Well, it's like David Sheckman, the co-founder of our firm. He wrote today that he's selling his condo in Florida. He said, look, it's, Florida is a dangerous place to be in bad times. And the real estate market has been blasted up into oblivion in the high end of the market, not in the rest of the market where we all live, but in the high end of the market. You got to be smart and protect yourself. Times are going to get bad. The odds of Florida real estate soaring in the worst imaginable times are not good.
Well, the only reason I would say the high end, but the thing is, if you look the worst of times, Florida's low tax rates, good weather, and people are fleeing those high tax states in the Northeast and in the Midwest. That's what I see happening. And when you have back-to-back really bad winters like we had.
That too. I'm talking about two different things. He's talking about the demographics. But if you talk about costs, the same thing's going on in Colorado. I moved here 8 years ago, and it's people have been moving in from everywhere in the East and the West because no one can afford. Property taxes on my house here are $4,000. A similar house in New York would be $20,000. I mean, people can't afford to live on the coast anymore.
Nope, it's become unaffordable, and it's just the quality of life. Well, I was in New York over the weekend. Had some business to attend to and wanted to see my children. And, it was a lot of fun visiting the place. As far as ever living there again, I just could never see it, Andy.
Well, I just burned out from it. And, And I lived there until I was, God, how old was I? 37? I can't even think about it. And, mostly I just burnt out from living in the same place for so long. I mean, there's great things about it, but it's a very difficult place to live. Aside from the costs, it's a very, very stressful place for a lifestyle. And when you throw in all the costs, it makes it worse. In New York's particular case, the only reason New York is even floating as opposed to a lot of other states is because of Wall Street. And inevitably, I mean, the stock market and the bond market, the cartels, the PPT, they're going to lose control of it. And New York is going to flame out just like Illinois did when when our manufacturing business went away. So I think New York's a very dangerous place to be in the next decade.
I could not agree with you more. I think terrible place to be. Not where I would choose to be. Unfortunately, my kids haven't seen the wisdom of my theories, and that's unfortunate. But yeah, I totally agree, because it's this island of illusions, island of deceit, whatever else you want to call it. It's just people really not. It's the welfare state, which is rapidly becoming unaffordable. It's the union, the whole public employment unions, which are obsolete, and they are going to disintegrate. All these things that you really need to be aware of that make New York it's impossible for it to keep going on.
Yeah, well, any of these bureaucratic states that have super high taxes and super high regulations, again, in the best of times, you can mask a lot of that. But these are not the best of times. And pretty soon, it's going to be the worst of times. Some places, like Illinois, for instance, it already is the worst of times, which unfortunately are going to get, as Zero Hedge would call it, worster. But this is what we talk about. People need to consider all aspects of their life. I wrote an article a few years ago called Protection Continuum, which I refer to constantly when people say, what should I do? I said, look, everyone has to choose for themselves how much they want to protect themselves. A 1 on the scale means you move into Manhattan and put all your cash into Citibank. And a 10 means you move to a desert island, bury gold in the sand, and forage for food. I mean, you have to decide for yourself what's the best solution for you, but you have to consider it. And do consider that, given what's going on, there is certainly a worst case scenario potential within not so short of a long of a time frame.
Oh, you're so right. And really ignore that, and not something that you could just get people leave here and at this here, right? But if you ignore it, then you're really just sticking your head in the sand.
Or as I wrote the title of yesterday's article, whistling past the graveyard, which is exactly what people have been trained to do by the manipulation of markets and all the propaganda that comes out. I mean, less and less people are paying attention to the manipulations, but people are. I mean, to see the German stock market, and yes, there are some people who believe it'll be QE to infinity and it'll hyperinflate and et cetera. But to see the German stock market sitting at an all-time high, as the European Union literally could collapse at any second. I mean, the Germans are the ones who are negotiating with Greece, saying, Greece, we don't want you anymore. You're destroying us. Well, Greece will leave and Germany will go down, and there'll be people sitting there holding the German stocks. I mean, yesterday's article was called the stock crash to end all stock crashes. And I'm talking about in real terms. I don't know if it'll be a hyperinflation or a crash, but I mean, we're talking about record high multiples of stocks in the United States with the worst earnings and the worst earnings quality ever. But in Europe, it's far worse. Of course, it's far worse. They haven't even had fake GDP growth in Europe, and they have the headwind of the socialism and the pigs. It is truly astounding how people are, as I say, whistling past the graveyard, because it will not end well. It cannot and will not end well.
There's no possible way that it can. We're past the point where solutions can occur, and the thing is, they've never looked at solutions, right?
No, of course not. The solution is to kick the can. I mean, if you're in power, the solution is what you don't want. You don't want someone to try to fix things, because then you lose your power. Fixing things would mean breaking up the euro, breaking up the people who run the euro, taking apart all the banks and having markets go down. So why would you want that when you could just pass some fake laws, make up some propaganda, manipulate some markets, and keep things going as long as you're in office?
That's all it takes. Just prints up some money and everything looks good, and then hopefully it won't go to hell until you're out, retired in your villa or wherever you are, right?
Yeah, and that's why Greenspan is now out constantly saying the Fed is wrong. They're doing the wrong things. Everyone should buy gold. Everything is overvalued. Even Bernanke at one of his $250,000 lunches last year said, I don't think rates will ever go up to their average in my lifetime. Oh, really? In their lifetime, huh? Well, this is what the Fed chairman people are saying, and people are just not listening. Again, whistling past the graveyard.
Yeah, and rates, like what is it with that they keep saying they're going to raise them? And
well, it's gotten to the point where, I mean, you talk about farce. I mean, Janet Yellen literally said, just because we're no longer patient, it doesn't mean we're impatient. I mean, she literally said this, and they still talk about, well, the Fed's going to raise rates. The headline said Fed opens door to raise rates. No, they didn't. I did that audio blog, the most equivocally dovish FOMC statement ever, and that was at the Humphrey Hawkins hearings in late February. That was 3 weeks before the economy of the world and the dollar surged, and the economy collapsed and the dollar surged and oil plunged even more. That was before all of that. And then she came out with that statement. Yeah, they I did my, what was my audio blog called? New Lows of Fed Lunacy. I mean, yeah, they took the word patient out because everyone was saying, well, the credibility depends on them saying they took the word. Okay, what they did last time was they said, remember with the considerable time back in December, they said, consistent with our prior statement that we're going to keep the rates down at zero for a considerable time, we intend to be patient. Well, this time she said, consistent with our prior statement that we intend to be patient, we don't expect to raise rates at the April meeting. In other words, they said the exact same thing. They just simply took the word patient out just to appease people. And then said, but we really didn't mean it. And if you remember what she said in that dovish statement to Congress, she said this. She said, no, we're not even considering lowering rates. And even if we were going to, we would first change our guidance saying that we were thinking about it. And even if we do that, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to do it. And then all she said this time around was, yes, we're still patient. We're going to take the word patient out, but we are still patient, of course. And we're definitely not going to raise rates in April. That's it. Yeah, well, no SHIT. You're going to not raise rates in April. You're not going to raise rates ever is the more important thing. And remember, I can't emphasize it enough. The only thing the Fed cares about is the stock market. I'm telling you, if a nuclear bomb destroyed America and everyone died, but they could still trade the stock market through the algorithms and they could keep it with the PPT up, they would still not lower rates. They would still not ease. Because and you look today, you see the Dow falling and all this falling. If they lose control of the Dow, just like they've been losing control of commodities and currencies, they will be in there so freaking fast to announce QE4. And, you can't even imagine. And think about all the things that could cause this to happen. Like Greece, for instance, like the Ukraine, like the horrible economy. Look at this economic data around the world, everywhere. I mean, something is going to make it happen probably this year. I can't even comprehend that we can get through 9 months without something causing it to break, in which case what I call the Yellen reversal comes around. And she said, the economy actually is not so good. We're going to have to be accommodative. And if things are really bad, like the Dow actually falls, God forbid, like 2,000 points, they'll just announce QE4. And of course, it'll have to be bigger than QE3 since each one as a Ponzi scheme has to grow progressively larger.
Yeah, so no end in sight. No rest for the weary, right?
Never.
And on that note, we'll let you go, Andy. Just find Andy's work at milesfranklin.com and financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Got a couple webinars coming up. Make sure you sign up on the mailing list, opt in. And Andy, we will talk to you next week and see how it continues unfolding. All right?
Look forward to it.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.